Hello, how's everyone doing? I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So, if you're new here, welcome. And if you're returning, it's great to see you again. My name is Natasha Saxena. I work for the nonprofit organization, the Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council, and I'm the Firewise Regional Coordinator. Our mission is to mobilize residents to protect their homes, communities, and environments from catastrophic wildfire. We've been hosting these workshops almost every month this year, and all our past workshops are available on YouTube to watch, and this one will also be recorded to be on our YouTube. Today is our last meeting of the year, and I'm so excited to announce we have a special guest speakers from the Ondulando Firewise community. 6 years ago, in December 2017, the Ondulando neighborhood was at the epicenter of the Thomas Fire, losing 150 homes in their neighborhood. Since then, Ondulando has become a story of hope and the city of Ventura's first Firewise recognized community in 2023. They are here to present on how they are sustaining efforts after recognition, sharing some challenges and successes along the way. With all the recent fires like the Mountain Fire and the Franklin Fire, this is a great workshop to attend, so I'm so glad to see you're all here. So for today's agenda, we're gonna first do some updates and announcements, and then I'll go over just a quick Firewise USA refresher, and for those of you who may not know what red flag warning is, I'll go over what that is as well. Then we'll pass it on to Ondulando for a Firewise presentation, come back for a Q&A, and then we'll end at around 2:05. So for updates and announcements, we have 21 communities in Ventura County that are recognized as Firewise, which is a huge jump from 2022, where we had only 2 communities. Then 2023, we had 6, and now we have 21. And we're hoping to get 24 by 24 this year. So there's still a few more communities that have submitted applications, and we're just going back and forth to make sure they can get through. Updates for our organization, they will release a 2025 workshop schedule pretty soon, probably in January. Most likely it won't be as often as these ones, like on a monthly basis. It'll probably be on a quarterly basis. And then we have a Firewise assistance form. Let me go ahead and drop this in the chat for you all. Okay, so that should be the link to all of our documents, including our Firewise assistance form. This is where you can request flyers from us completely free. You can also request speakers for workshops or events to introduce Firewise to your community or for your annual event. And then for those of you who are from a recognized community, you can apply for up to $1,750 from us currently until the application deadline on January 31st. Then if you are a recognized or not a recognized community, you're still able to apply for our chipper events, and you can just submit a chipper interest form. This will let us know that your community is interested in getting a chipper event, and we'll put you on our calendar. And then we still have our home wildfire assessments that we offer throughout the county, and you can sign up anytime, the calendar schedule there. There you go. I believe we don't have Larry Williams on with us yet, but if he does join later on, he'll have some updates for us. And then I did want to shout out that Ventura County Fire Department has their Spark of Love event every year around this year. And in one of the links, you'll see that you can find drop-off locations if you'd like to donate to their Spark of Love event. I do want to say as a small update, if any of you are applying for Firewise right now or are waiting on signs, this time of year tends to be the busiest year for the NFPA. So if you haven't heard back about your application progress or whether you've become recognized or not, they're going to try to get to everything before the end of the year, but it does take a little time. So have a little patience with them there. And then red flag warnings. So a few days before the recent Franklin Fire and Mountain Fires, Max Young, our head of wildfire safety on our team, sent us a chat message of this image, which you can go to the next slide, Sarah. Awesome. That's from the National Weather Service. And he warned us that weather conditions were about to be critical. He warned us of a red flag warning, which are a forecast warning that indicates weather conditions are ideal for wildland fires and rapid fire spread. I myself live in a rental home in Ventura, and I let my roommates know how to prepare ahead of time, and that's something that you can share with your neighbors and your community if you're a resident leader. I recommended that they downloaded the app Watch Duty, which you can go to the next slide, Sarah. Thank you. This app is an incredible app. It'll show you what fires are in your nearby community. You can toggle notifications for this for your area. It'll show you wind conditions. You can click on the fire to see the real live updates from the fire department. It's an excellent app if you'd want to pay attention to what's happening nearby and even stay up to date on where the nearest evacuation zones are for you. Besides watch duty, I also encourage them to sign up for VC alerts, have a go bag ready during this time, and then bring in combustible items like wood wick or patio furniture or cushions that are within 5 feet of your home inside. Those are just a few tips. You can also regularly, maybe once a week, check National Weather Service, which is another link in the chat, to see when these red flag warnings will hit. But if you'd like more information, you can sign up for a wildfire assessment with us, and we're happy to provide you more information on that. Okay, next slide. So as a little refresher to Firewise USA, Firewise USA is a voluntary national program, and it's completely free. It's been around for more than a decade, and the program empowers residents in fire-prone areas to reduce their wildfire risk. Applications are to be submitted online, and communities can reapply every year to maintain their recognition, which is exactly what Nancy and Ben will be talking about today. The benefits are numerous, including safer and more educated communities and potential financial benefits, including funding from local organizations like our Fire Safe Council. I've seen in other states, local churches have funded their communities. Also, because Firewise is not a nonprofit organization, if you do find grants that you may be able to apply for, you can contact our Fire Safe Council and we can apply on your behalf. There's also potential insurance discounts. I still say potential, even though it says that it's a guarantee now, according to the California Department of Insurance. The reason I say potential is because not everybody has the same insurance that are identified by the California Department of Insurance, because it must be a CDI identified insurance agency. Also, there is no mandatory minimum on that discount. So some folks are only finding that they're getting $5 of a discount, whereas some people are getting major discounts. So that is a small benefit, but still a benefit that exists. Okay, next slide. And then as a brief refresher, there's 6 steps to Firewise USA. First is to form a team, maybe just asking your neighbors who would be willing to lead this in your community. Then assessing wildfire risk, developing an action plan, and then on an annual basis, you'll want to report certain vegetation removed and report your hourly investment, so volunteer hours in your community, and then host annual outreach events. Then you'll apply online and you'll reapply every year after. Okay, next slide. So without further ado, I'm excited to introduce Nancy and Ben, who will be our guest speakers for today. Yeah. So Nancy Arodi and Ben Rode are board members of the Ondulando Firewise community. In 2022, they began their quest with lots of support from their Ondulando neighbors, many of which were impacted by the Thomas Fire, where I mentioned 150 homes were burnt down in their neighborhood. In the picture to the left, you'll see both Ben and Nancy in front of their former house with the holiday decorations surprisingly still intact during the December fire. And then during their home rebuild, they wanted to be more fire resilient. So they found our organization, Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council, and through a collaborative effort, they became the first Firewise recognized community in the city of Ventura in 2023. You can see them on the cover of the VC Reporter on the image to the right, along with some of their neighbors. And then besides all that, Ben and Nancy have lived and taught mathematics in California, Fiji Islands, Spain, and Kenya, and have lived in Ventura since 1990. So Ben, Nancy, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to hear more from you, and I'll pass it off to you. You can go to the next slide, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Natasha. So here we are, and our email is ondulando.firewise@gmail.com.
You can just Google Ondulando Firewise and it comes up.
So next slide. So what congratulations you're a Firewise community. That's a lot of work, we know. But now what? What do we do afterwards? And so your risk assessment's done, your action plan's done, your community meeting's done. Now you're applying for it or you're getting it. And as you can see, these folks are out there. We've had the fire marshal, the city manager, Stephen Watson, Myra, and Andy Ortega from Firewise. Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council, and then the rest of the board members. So we have seven board members also. And so next slide. Here you go.
So we're going to talk about a lot. We're going to talk about what we have done since we first got recognized. And probably the major thing for us is teams. We created teams and recruited them. And the first team is water assurance, which with any luck, you won't need one. But after the Thomas fire, there were lots of accusations and worries because we didn't have any water in our neighborhood during the fire. And so one of our key issues was to try to make sure, do what we could to see that that wasn't going to happen again. So we called that group the Water Assurance Team. And then we also had emergency response, wildfire preparation, a welcome team, and communications. Obviously, you would figure out which teams you want and would do it your way. But it's a very important thing, both because it increases the amount of involvement, but it also spreads out the responsibility. You have a group that's, looking at these issues. And so that's also very helpful. So that's been a very positive thing.
The two pictures there are the water assurance team members and some others. And we were visiting through Ventura Water. We were visiting some of the tanks.
In our neighborhood.
In our neighborhood. And that day we got our Firewise neighborhood signs. So we're holding them up. So during the Thomas fire, they had portable generators that did not work. And so they abandoned our street and other streets because there was no water to fight the fire. So the second picture is the new generators, permanent generators. And you can see Ben standing next to one of them, how big they are. And Ventura Water has put a permanent generator on each water tank. So when the mountain fire started, the water assurance team called Ventura Water and said, how high are our tanks? And they told them exactly what they were doing, and they followed the red flag protocols perfectly.
So that was for the mountain fire. We actually were informed that the tanks were full. We were set.
And we could send that out to the people on our mailing
which we
list.
did. We emailed our group.
Yeah.
Next slide.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So one of the things we did first was to post the signs to let our neighborhood know about Firewise. And we designed a logo. I don't know if you're past that era or not, but you can go to logos at Firewise USA and you can download them and use them. So that, as you can see in our logo, Ondulando Firewise, we used the picture of the house and also the same font and the idea of residents reducing wildfire risk. So, and then we got the website up and running, and we could, on the website, we can record volunteer hours and the money spent that they did. And it's also contact information, who are we, and it explains what Firewise is. So to the picture to the right is the newsletter, one of the newsletters that we have. Do that one.
So the newsletter, that's an important tool for us because we can use it. We send it out quarterly. That seems to be a reasonable amount. And it allows us to stay in touch with the neighborhood, to announce anything interesting that's happening, like a chipping event or something like that. And so the most recent newsletter had the usual announcements. We thanked everybody for recording their hours. It worked really well for us. We got way more hours than we needed for our continuance of recognition. we included a news article on how fire safety measures due to Firewise helped save a neighborhood in Wrightwood. Their Firewise efforts paid off. We also sent out mountain fire information. We sent out an email that actually wound up on social media that just originally we sent it out to just our group, talking about how to get ready for evacuation, those kinds of things, mostly reminders. And so that's something we can do. We not wait for the newsletter, but we reported it there. And then insurance information. You must know everybody is very focused on insurance. And so we try to keep up on what's going on and keep everybody informed. And our newsletter always ends with facts and resources, pretty much the same ones. But the idea is new people can look at that.
So next slide. So it sounds great, our recent newsletter. We have 640 parcels, so 640 homes, and we have 160 emails. So only 25% of the people are getting the newsletters because we're not an HOA. We don't know all the people that are there. And people are reticent, as we all are, to give our email away. But if they would only know all the information that's in the newsletter, it would be interesting. They should sign up for it. So that's our biggest problem.
Yes.
How do we get all the people engaged or at least educated?
Yeah.
How do we get the word out? So if you've got some good ideas, we want to hear from them. So the next slide.
So home wildfire assessments. I hope you've all had one. It's really a fabulous opportunity, particularly if you're involved with a Firewise board or a group. We find that all the homeowners who've had an assessment are A, very thankful, and B, really become focused on making their houses more fire safe. And as you know, it's recommendations, it's not mandate. And so anybody is going to be able to at least some of the things that they've been recommended by the fire risk assessment, and that will make their house safer and make them feel better. So one of the things we're doing to try to promote ourselves and get more people engaged is every time somebody gets one of their risk assessments, we have them put a sign out in front of their house. So people see the signs and they're dotted around the neighborhood, and then also in hopes that maybe their neighbors will talk to them and find out what a great thing it is. So we're using that as a way to obviously make the neighborhood more fire safe, but also try to get more people engaged who aren't currently engaged. Next slide.
So part of our action plan was to have a chipping event. So through a grant through the Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council, we were able to hold a chipping event in May last year. And what we did to advertise that was to print off half sheets of paper. And we should say that we walked up to the door and put them in there, but we actually just put them in the mailbox, hoping no one would mind. But so just to know that people were doing that. And then we also, through a grant, got 2 A-frames advertising. And these are pretty phenomenal. As you can see, it's people drive by. And so we put them near the 2 entrances to our community. And so people see it. Now, and then word of mouth would help too. You would think that it would said Ondulando Firewise free chipping event. Yet there was a fellow who thought it was a golf tournament. And we just really shook our heads. Really? A golf tournament? That's what you think we're after? Anyway, so for the chipping event, you can have a brush that's like 4 feet tall and then about 10 feet wide. So this is an example of the brush that could get good. So that worked out. We had 26 people, and we had about 5 people at the last minute say, "Can I do it?" Right. And which the Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council were very wonderful and saying, sure, you can go to your house. So next slide.
So recording hours is one of really the major hurdle in terms of continuing your recognition. And so we also work to publish that. We use the same A-frames. The signs we have are printed. One side is reach the goals, the other side is chipping event. Emails, newsletters, flyers, our usual battery of information. And so that was really quite successful. We had, I think, 8 times the hours and or dollars spent on home hardening that are required. And I would just say that Firewise is really a very wise organization. They do not set the bars too high, and it's really very manageable for a neighborhood that is just starting off the path of Firewise. It is not that hard to hit these goals. And so we're happy that we hit them. And I just let you know that it's not a really big deal to worry about. It's very manageable.
Next slide. So last holiday season, that was the anniversary of the Thomas Fire, and we had an educational outreach meeting at the Poinsettia Pavilion. We had no idea how many people were going to come, although we did go into the Ventura Breeze and the VC Reporter and the radio. Mm-hmm. And we were amazed that 165 people showed up to see this, the perfect firestorm, the Thomas Fire story. And so basically, it is about how people helped each other mm-hmm. after the fire. And so there was an incredible turnout. However, there weren't, and so we thought we would get people from Ondulando to sign up, but we only had like 2 or 3 people sign up out of the 165. So it's just difficult. And I just also want to say we are walkers, and other people on the board are walkers too. And that is really how we are meeting a lot of people mm-hmm. is, oh, are you in Firewise? And would you like to sign up, et cetera. So next slide.
Okay, well, homeowners insurance, as I say, the insurance industry, we sort of have a love-hate relationship with them in Firewise, because we hate the fact that they're making it so difficult for us, trying to leave, et cetera. But we like the fact that they're really focusing people on getting their houses more fire safe and fire resistant. So people are attentive. The industry is promoting risk. The insurance commissioner's office is doing an excellent job, in our opinion. And we keep track of what they're doing. And in fact, this little picture here along with the slide is from their website. And so keeping track of what they're up to on their website is very useful, because rather than rely on rumors, you see what's actually going on in the state. And then
and so what I would like to say is that so because of the mountain fire, we made sure everybody on the email list knew that no one can be dropped. Their insurance can be dropped for 1 year from November 4th through November 4th, 2025. So information like that, that's when people get on board, because mm-hmm. they see, okay, this is helpful for us.
Yeah. So, but if you go to the Insurance Commissioner's website, you can see the zip codes that are now protected for a year. You have to be close enough to the mountain fire, and we are. Maybe you aren't. I don't know where you live, but it just depends which zip code you're in, whether or not you get the year grace period. So another thing is to talk about United policyholders. If your house burned down, you probably found out about them at the assistance centers. But if you don't know, they're another great source to become informed about your insurance options, what's going on with insurance, et cetera. So,
and when people in your community come up and say, my insurance, they just dropped me, point them to the insurance commissioners, because you can apply for getting why you were dropped. The insurance company must, according to the law, tell you within 30 days why you were dropped. Also, United policyholders, it has great solid info. And now, so, you could tell them to go to that website. Next slide.
Okay, so we don't know what you've done. We've been in touch with our emergency services manager for the city of Ventura, and he's been very helpful, and it's a great resource. So if there's a county emergency services manager, or if you're in the city of Ventura, we recommend that, as well as your local fire marshal. I don't know if Larry's here, but I think he's the county fire marshal, and we've been in touch with our fire marshal. And those are both very good sources of support and information. And then you want to talk about this?
Yes. So, for example, the emergency services manager wanted for the city of Ventura to every piece of Ventura have an evacuation list. Well, that just feeds right into our education and our action plan. Also, the community emergency response teams, the CERT teams, that is fabulous for having people in your area join them. Because you learn it's a 6-week program, 3 hours for each meeting, and then it's just wonderful. So down below that very long one, those are the people in Ventura who have recently gotten their certificate for a community emergency response teams.
It's a very good idea to encourage at least some people in your Firewise community to go through CERT training, because they become very aware of evacuation techniques, first aid, et cetera. And so, and in that same vein, there's a program out there called Map Your Neighborhood. And the city of Ventura is trying to tailor it specifically for our city. And so we're interested in using this approach. And so next year, one of our goals is to essentially start having small neighborhood groups meet with the idea of creating a framework for evacuation. And it's not just fire, it could be for an earthquake, it could be for a chemical spill, shelter in place. Again, it's a multi-purpose thing. And so we feel that this is something to look into, and certainly we'll be happy to help with this if you got questions.
So the overall idea is, having the large meetings doesn't work very well, but it's person to person. So maybe a group of 20 neighbors who are living in the same area, and then we meet with them and talk about it and come up with block captains, et cetera. So next slide. And I think if we were wondering if you were interested in sharing newsletters, information, our website, which is just Google Ondulando. That Ondulando is Spanish for undulating hills. Ondulando Firewise community, and there's only one Google site on that. But on our website, we have listed all of our newsletters. And the first one's 3 pages, and the last one was 10 pages. So there's a lot.
Yeah. And so one of the things that have been thinking about is that we're an early group getting into Firewise. But now that there's lots of groups, we think it'd be wonderful if we as the groups could share information, share ideas for engagement. Like, for example, signs. What doesn't work? Doing it on the internet. We tried that. What does work? Signorama in Ventura. They're really good. Their prices are good. And you can go in and talk to them and get what you actually want.
And they help you design it.
Yeah. So we know things that you don't have to learn the hard way, and vice versa. So I think it'd be really helpful if we set up, maybe these quarterly seminars, whatever we call them, workshops. We could devote part of it to just, hey, here's something really helpful, or hey, here's something, don't do this. So we share information and don't have to repeat all the same mistakes.
So, for example, the Wrightwood, it was an LA Times article that someone saw, alerted us to it. So in our newsletter, we have a link to the full article, but also had 2 or 3 paragraphs about Wrightwood, 2,000 homes and lots of brush around. But they really worked on what Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council does, is hardening your homes. And guess what? Only 13 of the 2,000 homes burned, where it could have been a disaster. So anyway, things like that. So let's talk. We're done.
Yeah. Any questions? So go to questions, Natasha.
Yeah, that sounds great. Sarah, if you would stop sharing your screen, that'd be great. That way we can all see each other. And Nancy, Ben, thank you for the presentation. It's always great to hear from you. I'll first do the questions in the chat for you. And the first one is from Beth. She asked, how many dwelling units in your Firewise community? And I think we also have a small group, so after I go through the chat, feel free to unmute and you could ask your questions.
Okay, 640 houses. It's a lot, but we're a sort of a little community. We're a community, so it wouldn't have been fair to cut ourselves in half and have a more reasonable size. So Ondulando is 640 parcels, 2 entrances, exits. Otherwise, it's up against the hills.
Thank you.
And then Jay asked, how much did those signs cost? I briefly just mentioned that if you become a recognized site from the NFPA, you get 2 free entrance signs. Most people put it at the entrance of their communities. And then Ondulando specifically applied for assistance through our organization, where we funded their signs, including banners, yard signs, and those 2 A-frame signs that you saw for the chipper event. And I got this from the application, but I don't remember what the exact cost was, but I think I recalled it was around $300 for 15-yard signs from Up Printing. But then you mentioned another printing organization, so I wonder if you changed later on.
Yeah, well, we got signs through Signorama, which Up Printing online problems didn't work out to our satisfaction, but we got
real fuzzy.
Really,
we came and it was real fuzzy,
poor
and
quality,
it should have been
bad color. Anyway,
and then they lost them, and then they had to print them again. You know.
So then we got signs from Signorama in Ventura, and that was a much better experience. So if you're going to get signs, that would be the way to go. We can introduce you.
And
I don't remember honestly how much they cost. Natasha's right. It was, I think, $300 for 15 signs.
Well, what was interesting is that we got a 10-foot by 3-foot banner, and that was $130. Yeah, and that was amazing. And then the each A-frame is $250, but it comes with the an
insert, a panel,
the panel insert, and you can print it on both sides. So that's with the printing on both sides. And then we did those ones.
Yard signs,
yeah, the yard signs. Yeah. 300 about.
Certainly,
yeah.
But call us, email us. We're happy to talk to you about the whole yard sign issue.
Yeah, and you guys have a unique way of sharing your yard signs, right? So you got 15 in your community, and then I believe the process is you kind of switched around from the homes.
Yes. Yeah. We let people keep them. They don't have to keep them, but if they want to keep them, when we finally have somebody new, then we'll take them and put them in a new place. And so that spreads the word, which is what we're going for.
It's a really cost-effective way to do that. I really love seeing that. Whenever I drive through Ondulando and I'm doing an assessment, I always see those signs, and I think it's so fun. I love it. And then Kevin asked, was the movie at Poinsettia Pavilion your first community meeting? If not, how did you get folks to attend the other ones?
It was not. We had a initial meeting at a church down at the bottom of Ondulando, and I believe we put flyers in. No. We actually, you guys, Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council, helped us with a mailing. We got a mailing out to our neighborhood, and we had, well, pretty good attendance, 50 or 60 people.
Like 55 people.
For the first meeting. And so we'd already had a board, but from that, we started forming our teams and started getting things going.
Now, the very first one was in October 2022, and that was our neighborhood met.
Our street
met. The first 42 houses burned down the same street. So we met on a Sunday, the first Sunday of every month, for 2.5 years until COVID came along. And so we asked that group of people to come in and, should we start this? And their answer was, my God, of course, it's a no-brainer. Let's do it. And so from there, we started the process and then opened it up to all of Ondulando.
Mm-hmm.
5 other streets. Mm-hmm.
Very nice. If you're interested in mailers, I think that's something that we used to do. But if you do want that for your community, I think you could just shoot me an email, Natasha at VenturaFiresafe.org, and we can discuss it with our team to see if we have the funding available to help you spread the word through your community.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great one.
But also most of the time is just we print it out and we put it in the mailboxes. I know it's illegal,
we distribute it.
but no one has bothered us so far. Yes.
Yeah, you can also do underneath the doormat if you need to.
Yes.
Illegally. For legal purposes, I'll just say you were just joking. And then James asked, how did you set up your website and email?
Well, we had help from you guys, the Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council, and I assume that you're still able to do that because you got a template.
Are you able to do that?
I think so. When we first started, I think Max was helping you all out with the website.
Mm-hmm.
We're discussing in 2025 to what extent we're going to help folks set up their own website. But templates are pretty easy online. You can kind of you might be able to figure it out. But again, just feel free to reach out and ask. Mike asked, what do we do with wood chips from the chipper program? Our organization, we have one chipper lead, and then our head of wildfire safety. So they normally figure out what to do with the chips afterwards. In the past, we've donated it to a butterfly garden, and depending on how the quality of the chip is, we basically collaborate with different organizations to find something afterwards. Or we can donate it to a chipper event, another like mulch type of event.
So, for example, for us, they Girl Scouts in Oakview have a camp there, and so they wanted to make a butterfly garden, so they put all the mulch there.
But people have the option, if they wanted, you could have your own chips back, and as long as you don't put them in the 5-foot zone, you can do that. But we don't. We didn't want ours. We're happy. Girl Scouts.
Yeah. Different firefighters will tell you different things, like they don't want to see any mulch anywhere, ideally. But VCFD has regulations on how many inches of mulch you can have depending on the zone. So zone 0, none, but they have standards of mulch sizes, which you can check out at one of our past workshops for WaterWise, where WaterWise meets Firewise. And then Mike also asked, what is the safest way to store gasoline on your property? Do you recommend specific type of gas cans? Mike, are you talking about propane gas tanks, possibly?
Gasoline, like for generators?
Gasoline generators. Honestly, I'm not too sure about the answer to that. Gary could answer that. Go for it, Gary.
Well, it's really hard to find the old school metal cans, which are better for radiant heat than the plastic, because plastic's going to melt and you're going to have quick venting and you're going to have liquid gasoline out on the ground and it's going to spread out to whatever's hot in the area. So it's really hard. Whether it's if it's metal, it can now blow up. And it finally meets its head space and it can just burst. And so now you have a steam go in the can. Again, you have liquid and it's vaporizing. So it's never safe to have it around anything that could burn. So what I did, I wanted to have generators available when we evacuated here in the mountain fire. And so I just found a nice clear opening out in the yard. The generators went next to that and just kept it away from anything that was combustible. No firewood pile, no fence, nothing no part of the house. It was all in the middle of the yard. And that's really the best way to do it. So really, really the best thing to do for generators is probably find out what we can do that does not require having a lot of stored fuel on site. Really the best thing.
Because that's the cheapest option, unfortunately, the gasoline.
Sure, right. It is. It is.
Hmm.
But the safest is to find out what like Generac folks and whatnot, where you can actually backfeed your power into the home through your circuitry. Yeah, and now they're doing that with solar power. There's so many higher tech ways to do it without having stored gasoline. But if you're gonna have stored gasoline, in spite of all those things, sorry, I have a retainer. I and if you're not able to get it far away from combustible things, and certainly your house, then just keep the amount to the bare minimum that you need to keep that generator running. And I did that, and I was going out to the store every day to fill my generator. Just I did not want to have a cache of gasoline on site.
And just for background, Gary works with the City of Ventura Fire Department, so he's good, good knowledge from him. Beth, because you've been so patient with your hand raised over there, I'm just gonna have you go before I get to the rest of the questions, but you can go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Okay, I'm sorry. There's my printers in the background for a second. So I want to congratulate you guys. And for those of you who don't know me, Natasha certainly does. I'm Beth Burnham. I've been a community organizer in the wildfire preparedness space for like 15 years from Topanga Canyon originally. I was a co-founder of the Fire Safe Council in Topanga Canyon and took Topanga through it becoming Firewise. It's a community of 3,200 homes. So we work very differently, but in Topanga, we have a lot of other organizations that are in the community preparedness space. Everybody has their own email list, and our committee for the Firewise committee was made up of other organizations. And so we distribute and reach our community via email lists that we don't have. So that's one model. I'm now the regional Firewise coordinator on the Eastern Sierras for Mono and Inyo counties. And here I'm working in a whole different world where my Firewise communities are really very small. And a community of 70 would be pretty typical. And or maybe, or 120 dwelling units. And that's a place where you can really have a model of that you were beginning to mention, the neighborhood network kind of a model. That's the model of Topanga for the Topanga Emergency Preparedness, the TCEP, the Coalition of Neighborhood Network Coordinators. And the neighborhood network coordinators then know their neighbors, know how to get their email addresses, and can feed them upward. And I would really recommend that as being one major way of developing that database of email addresses, because you've got to have them. Got to have them. And when I'm dealing with somebody with a community of 70, it's pretty easy for them to get them all or get everyone who wants to participate. And, I saw on your form that you use for people submitting their community investment and their green waste and stuff like that, that you collect that email address. I would just make it a required field. And I think it may be, but it is just every way you can work. When you had that film event, you should have. I would tell you that if you create, and I have one for the Santa Monica Mountains. It's out of date at this point, but like a resource guide for the Santa Monica Mountains. So you say to everyone, sign in. We'll take care of recording your time, and you might have to say, tell us if you're from our community, a checkbox. Because you might have people who are attending who are outside your community and their attendance doesn't count for your Firewise hours. But, give us your email addresses, tell us if you're in our community, and we'll send you this sheet. So you're giving them something for giving them your email address. And you're going to say, hey, we promise not to share your email address. We promise to only bother you, not very frequently. And, today we all get inundated with emails. It's hundreds and hundreds of emails. And it's like, it's no longer a private thing. You actually get less mail than you get emails. And so I think there's a big range of opportunity. And there's no doubt that reaching each individual person and creating that database is the hardest part for building a Firewise community. So if anybody has any questions, I'm always happy to answer questions for anybody. The Santa Monica Mountains are my home base. And so I'm always happy and to answer questions. And you can always get to me through Natasha. She knows how to find me.
Thanks, Beth.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You guys are doing a great job. That's the thing is that, and your idea of trying to create the superstructure of Firewise communities, so you can support each other. Absolutely. Really,
Yeah.
really.
We'll have to workshop that too, and maybe get ideas from folks of what platforms might be best to create. Like if it's I think email inboxes are very I guess there's a lot of emails in everyone's email inbox, but if that's the best way to communicate, then we can do that. Or like a Slack channel, something like that. I think 2025 probably into discussing that. And then, yeah, thank you, Beth. Appreciate it.
Sure.
And then Maria, I'll get to your question too in the chat. So Maria asked, did your evacuation map come from someone who completed CERT? To Nancy and Ben.
It actually came from the city. One of our other teams, the evacuation team, was talking to the city about evacuation because they were having us basically turn the wrong direction in the official evacuation. And so we said, we pointed out to them that really wasn't viable. And so the emergency manager looked at the whole thing and they basically, I don't know if they redid, but they clarified the whole city's or the hillsides evacuation plan and published it. And so we were able to distribute it to our neighborhood. And now we're turning the right way. In other words, what we have to do when we get down to the main street is turn in the direction that makes sense.
And they actually had the whole city of Ventura could answer a questionnaire about evacuations because the people in the hillside, 27,000 people had to evacuate on the night of December 4th. So a lot of people had experiences and they had 900 people, 900 responses. And of course, we made sure that the people in our neighborhood answered the questionnaire too. So the emergency services manager with a team from the city of Ventura and police created the evacuation plan.
Did they create the questionnaire too?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, because I've been here at a meeting where there are groups in Agora, which is LA County, but we got right up there, and people were up in arms about you can't make people go down Canaan. At that same night, it took people 4 hours to get 4 miles. So yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So a Firewise community is actually a good thing. I mean, we're not necessarily large, but we have some power, and we have been able to talk to the people in the city of Ventura who make some of these decisions, and at least let them know, what we think and how it looks to us, and what we learned during the Thomas Fire. And so I think it's a good idea to become friendly, become engaged with your emergency management people and your fire people.
Very, very true. Some folks have even invited some city professionals, like city managers, to their Firewise teams if they have the time and capacity, and even if they live in their neighborhood, they join as well. Mike Lilly has just asked, do we need all the BCFD documents in Spanish? 100% agree. I think there might actually already be some documents for Firewise in Spanish on the NFPA website. Beth is nodding yes, so she's saying yeah. I know we both need to update our websites, so we have it scheduled for January, doing a major website update again, and then I just noted it down to add those Spanish documents on our website, so that'll be available as well. Mike, I'm happy to. I mean, I think I can send you the links to the VCFD documents in Spanish, or it could just be available on NFPA, but I have it written down. Thank you. Israel, can we get a copy of this presentation? It'll be posted on YouTube, and I can also email you afterwards too. And then there's
another question though when we get a chance.
Yes, go for it, Israel. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm learning more and more, working with Supervisor Gorell. I'm establishing our 2025 public safety and health. And one of my goals is to bring 5 new communities into being Firewise recognized. But I'm learning the tickler list, which is every time in one of these meetings, it's very helpful of all the hurdles or things that groups have to go through in order to become that. But one of the questions I had specifically is on the presentation, and I think it was with Nancy, and you had a picture of large generators.
Mhm.
Okay, if you could just highlight for me what the purpose of those generators are once again, that would be very helpful.
Okay, so our street during the Thomas Fire was abandoned, which we agreed with. The firemen should not be
On a street with no water.
yeah, there was no water because we are fed by 2 tanks, and the tanks were low. And even though it was a red flag warning, at that time they didn't have a protocol for the Ventura water to fill the tanks. So it was low, and as you know, people all tried to turn on their sprinklers,
When
right?
they left.
When they
Yeah.
left. And so then that reduced it. And so there was no water. The generators should have gone on, but the electricity was turned,
There was no electricity.
the fire starting in Santa Paula took the high fire electrical lines down. So there was very little electricity. The pumps run on electricity. So they were trying to take their generators that were temporary, not temporary, but portable, and move them to the second highest tank to get water. They didn't work. Therefore, 150 homes burned just in our community, 500 in total in Ventura. And so our water assurance team went and the Ventura water was phenomenal working with us. And everybody, every tank now has one of those great big generator, permanent generator there. So now, did I answer your question, Mike?
So you didn't have to come up and raise the money for the cost of those generators then?
Oh, no.
No,
Oh, no.
we simply asked what was happening, and Ventura Water had done this and had not publicized it. So we were astonished, and we have sort of spread it to our community and have told others that they did exactly what we hoped would happen.
Okay.
They made sure we weren't going to have the same results from the next fire.
And they had a protocol on red flag warning. What's the percentage of, we're raising the level of the water in the tanks, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So, I must say, they were happy to talk to our Firewise group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know we've got Kevin Cannon on the line here too, and it'd be one of the.
I'd like to pipe in.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that happened in Ventura was the PVC pipes melt. And so not only the generators have to be hardened, everything has to be hardened to withstand heat. So in one neighborhood I know, it came down the gutter because their PVC pipes at the bottom of the tank melted. The other thing is real time, when the mountain fire broke out, somebody told me there's a fire near you. I looked at watch duty, there was nothing. So watch duty doesn't seem to be real time. It's one guy getting information from other sources and putting it on watch duty. I found it on Pulse Point. Okay, it's like that's where Pulse Point was more real time. I don't think VC Alert had anything right away either. So I just wanted to throw that out
But
there.
also, the reality is that you need multiple sources. That's what the theme is of what you're saying. I'll also say that today watch duty is different than it was at the time of the mountain fire. It's a lot more sophisticated.
No, mountain fire just happened.
Oh, sorry. Okay, you're right.
Okay.
But it is but it's a question of having a lot of different sources.
Sure. Anyway, the other thing on emails, okay, Regional Fire Safe Council, when you guys do an assessment, is there any chance that you're passing that email along to the Firewise community that those people could be part of, if one's forming especially? Or is that something, I mean, you could ask them, can I share this with your Firewise coordinator that's trying to, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think we do it a couple ways. We at first we try to make sure that the report is completely private to the person that's doing the assessment. That's our number one priority there. What I normally do is if you would like to know who in your community or how many assessments you have in your community, we can provide how many assessments have been done in your community by doing like a map overlay that Max handles because I'm not the map person. And then what we do, I think what we did for Ondulando's community was that we emailed those folks and we asked, hey, would it be okay if we shared this information with your Firewise leaders? And then we then proceeded to give the emails if they said yes. In the future, it'd be really great if we had something very advanced that would immediately tell us when we're in assessment, hey, this is in this Firewise community. And then we can ask them right then and there, but that's not something that we have capabilities for right now. But I'd say that would be the best way to connect at the moment.
Okay, one last thing on forming. Okay, so I'm in Santa Rosa Valley, 1,100 units. I've already broken it into separate communities that are going to each go for their recognition. It's hard to form that committee. Step number one, form a committee. So where I'm at is get a resident leader, right? Because that's required when you put in the application. So is it okay, Natasha, just have one person be my resident leader and put it on them to like try to eventually form a committee, but get the ball rolling with that one person. And then by the time the application goes in, hopefully they have one or two other people to put on that. If not, they put me on there. I don't know. Does that work?
Beth's shaking her head no. I think it really depends on the community. I've seen some communities have one person submit an application. It tends to be a lot on one person. But if you do plan on maybe marketing it some more and getting more folks involved in the future, I think it'd be fine to have like bare bones. This is what we did. We applied for Firewise, and now in the next few years, we want to get more and more folks involved. If that's where your community is at. But there is no, regulation involved with this. It's more of just hearing statements from like Nancy's community in Ondulando, Maria's community in Canyon Cove, and I think it's Canyon Cove. Yep, and then Tina's community in Golden Oaks, and hearing how much work is involved in this, you'll just want more people involved eventually.
Sure.
But if it's just one person right now, that's great. Then you can maybe get the funding to from us before January 31st to try to spread the word even more, get those banners to hopefully get more folks involved in the future.
And our teams and our folks signed up at the first educational outreach meeting. And so we explained what they were, and we had some people sign up for them. Yeah.
When I go to communities, sometimes we have like a sign-in list, and I have them star. Like at the start, I'll talk with the Firewise community. I'll be like, if you want, I can ask everyone to sign up and put a star next to their name if they're interested in joining the team, the leadership team. And that's a great way to do it too.
Yeah, can I respond to this a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead,
right now I'm working with 20 communities or more. Okay, so I have a pretty fair sense of a range. And obviously my communities are basically smaller than yours, but I'm also working in communities in Mammoth Lakes where 70 or 80% of the people don't live here. Okay, so there's a whole different problem in terms of how do you create a community sense. I really, really strongly believe that it's really, really important to have a committee when you start the process. I have found that when I have been working with a single person who is sort of more of a loner, I cannot really get a community to launch. And I would rather slow it down, do community outreach meetings, talk about what is Firewise, talk a bit about home hardening, and maybe I'll be talking to 20 people. I'm thrilled. I'll do a presentation in a volunteer fire department's bay with 20 people. And then I can generally get a handful of people. And what I basically say to my communities is, I don't consider a committee one or two. 3 becomes a committee. That's a committee. So 3 is my minimum.
Mm.
And that at anything bigger than 7, it's too hard to organize anything in terms of getting things going. I have some communities here that have like a core of maybe 3 or 4 people. And every time I go to a meeting, there's other people floating in and out. That's how they want to run. I'm fine with that. I have one community where it's 3 women. They live next door to each other. It's a 70 unit, 70 household community. They just ran it through, and they basically told their community that this is what we're doing and why we're doing it. So there is a huge range. There is no single right way, but I think that if you start it and you get formed and you've only got a committee of 1, you're never going to grow.
Well, let me clarify. So I have, like, let's say 8 communities. I have 8 resident leaders. That's our committee right now.
Nice.
So we're meeting together, for the whole San Jose
But each
Valley.
of those 8 communities are going to be their own Firewise community? Or are they going
Yeah,
to be?
because they didn't want to make it one big 1,100 dwelling
Right.
unit.
Right. But
Yeah.
still, those 8 people ought to be reaching out to their neighbors.
Sure. Yeah, but they're each responsible for figuring out their email list. Some's got an HOA, some don't, so it's all
Right.
different in those communities.
Oh,
So
it's always all different.
yeah.
It is always all different. But I really think it's important that they have, it's great that they have each other to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, really great on the one hand. But on the other hand, it feels like what CAL FIRE is trying to do is really build communities at a level of less than 500, which is why you've had to break into all of these smaller communities. You've made a decision to break into even smaller communities, which I don't disagree with. I think 500 is a lot to organize. It's very similar to what you guys are dealing with, and you know how hard it is to organize 640.
Yeah.
But I still think that you really want to spend some time with your resident leaders, really getting them to reach out to other people in their communities. It's really, really important.
Yeah.
Because they'll burn out. And that's the thing about all of these, I don't know how many of you guys have been involved with fire safe councils, but fire safe councils burn out people.
Mm-hmm.
Running a fire safe council burns out people. There are plenty of them on the Eastern Sierra here, and I think there are 1 or 2 that are active.
Mm.
And they just burn through people. I ran one for 10 years. I can tell you, it burns through you.
Definitely depends on.
Pardon me?
I think it depends on the I guess staffing for each
Well,
fire
that's,
safe council.
I ran it as a volunteer. You guys have the Ventura County model is a whole different model. And that is where I think the right model is, which is that fire safe councils belong at a much bigger geographical area than a community. And that Firewise is a much smaller unit. And that, just like you're using resident leaders to support each other, we should all be supporting each other as resident leaders, in the greater Ventura County area.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell you that in the state of California, I just got off the quarterly regional coordinators call on Wednesday. And it's like, we need to support each other too, because we're all doing this all alone. And it's, there's a lot of resources that we don't have to keep recreating. Share.
Definitely.
And that's needs to be teared down all the way down to the actual Firewise community. So, okay, enough of my blabber.
Thank you, Beth. The insight's always great. I appreciate it. I'm just going to get to this one last question that I think was a direct message from me, from James. So, is it true that you have to complete an application, get assessments, and submit an action plan in order to become a recognized community? So in order to become a recognized community, there's certain steps you have to take. Getting an assessment is like the home wildfire assessment is not a requirement of the program. It's just encouraged because it can be so good to get those hours for your community and encourage residents at the individual level to reduce their risk. Like Nancy and Ben mentioned a little bit earlier, there's an annual investment that you have to make, but most of the time you'll meet that investment pretty easily. So let's say you had 100 homes, you need 100 hours of investment, like 1 volunteer hour per home, but not everybody in the community has to participate. It could be that you attended one of these meetings and that's 2 hours right there. It could be that you spent $1,000 trimming a tree, and every $40 equals around $40 equals one volunteer hour. So you'll most likely knock that out of the park. You have an HOA, even easier if you hire someone to manage the vegetation. You just put that cost. I'd say the more strenuous part of the application is the action plan, making sure it's very detailed. But yeah, James, do you want to add more to the question?
Well, yes. I mean, I think my question was much more general.
Oh.
What I need to know is, see, we're just we right now we're a blank piece of paper and a pin on a map. Um, in order to get let's say just the starting stuff like 2 free signs, we need to be a recognized community. So so it's kind of like chicken and egg. We need the signs to get, up and running, I think, to get people interested, but we can't get the signs until we've taken certain steps. I just want to make sure that I understand what those steps are.
Right.
And
Okay, that
and I
makes sense.
so I do have to have the map. I have to have um a some sense of how many people are going to be participating
Mhm.
and an initial assessment, I guess, right?
Right.
I think we're
Okay.
getting mixed up with the fire risk assessment because,
The community wildfire risk assessment.
right, and that's the one where you ask your fire marshal to go with you and look at the area. And for example, we had a barranca that was full of brush. That's our risk. So they're going to go walk along with you. So the one that's the home hardening is also called a fire risk assessment. So
Yeah.
so that's the one you go around with your fire marshal and
Okay.
uh,
Community.
yeah. Mhm.
And just to add to that, so not every community is required. You don't have to go around with your fire marshal, but it'd be great if you can get them to go along
Yeah,
with you.
sure.
And on the signs note, so if you do the assistance form, you can get you can request to get an A-frame from us, one or two A-frames from us, and we can have a community sign for you, and that'll encourage maybe like a weekend event if you want to put up those A-frames for a whole week. You're welcome to borrow it from our organization. You just have to put in an assistance request and the dates. So that's
Yeah.
kind of how we're bridging the gap there, if you don't have signs yet. And then for the community risk assessment, James, you can schedule a chat with me. I think we already had a chat this last week. And
Yes.
then, so the risk assessment we can complete to the best of our ability virtually. And then from there, if we still need to do a site visit, then I'll loop in Ventura County Fire Department and we'll do a site visit for that community risk assessment.
Okay.
That's
All
like
right.
the,
Yeah.
the updated process for 2025. We're going to try it out with your community and a couple other communities too.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
And then James, also, I think on the website, there are some examples of action plans
And risk assessments.
and risk assessments.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
the deal is that they're looking, so if you have a risky area, then in your action plan, then you talk about how you're going to resolve that. What are you going to try to do, right? So just make sure your risk assessment gives you some ideas and then you put them in the action plan too.
So it is 2:10 p.m. or past 2:10 p.m. So I just want to let anybody who wants to has anything else to do today on a Friday, leave if you'd like to. And thank you so much for coming. Bye, Tina. And then Nancy, Ben, how are you on time? Do you want to stick around for a few more minutes for any questions, or do
Be
you
happy to. Be
Yeah.
happy
happy
to.
to? Okay, all right. So then for anybody else, thank you for coming. And then we'll stick around for a few more minutes. So it looks like Kevin has a question. So Kevin, go ahead. Maybe he has a question. But I think you're on mute right now.
Okay, now, yeah, if I did have something else, it was about the website. It's amazing to me that Max whipped that together and that you're offering to do that. I think a guy that I have borrowed that code. Um, but it is, oh, I know. The guy in Oak Park, their website is really slick in how he gathers. It's a dynamic thing. So as you answer questions, it pops up different things like, oh, you want to put in data on how much, uh, on the fuel reduction, like trash cans. Okay, so then it knows, okay, now let me ask you for gallons of material or something. But anyway, it's really cool. And he offered to let us, get a hold of that. They had a professional web developer do that. And then I was told by this, the Oak Park guy I'm talking about? He's the head of the fire
Yeah,
safety.
Doug Wilson, head of
Doug,
the Fire Safe Council in
yeah.
Oak
So
Park.
Doug Wilson said, yeah, we paid a guy to do that. And it's so slick that CAL FIRE wanted to hire him. And I thought, my God, why are we all inventing our own websites with Natasha trying to do it in an hour?
Yeah.
If CAL FIRE could, provide it as a template and we just go in and change the names of something simple that would probably take a literate person to do it, and then we'd all be standard on how we're running our Firewise, data collection. That would be really cool. I don't know if that's happening at CAL FIRE or not, but I'd love to find out.
Natasha, can I answer some of that?
Yeah, before real quick, sorry, Beth.
Yeah.
Is the website thing you can ask? I may or may not be able to help you support creating a website. That's still something we have to debate
Okay.
because there's so many programs, but that is definitely something you can ask, and then maybe we could go on a video chat and try to do it together. But yeah, go ahead, Beth.
So Oak Park found Peter Ferrer, and Peter is also running the Agora Hills Fire Safe Council and all the Firewise communities there. So you can go on to the Agora Hills and see the newest version of what Peter has created. I've been working with Peter since I met him over a year ago, actually at the Ventura County Firewise big meeting that Larry put together, sort of trying to mentor him and trying to figure out how to take his incredible knowledge and also his reality, which is he'd really like to make this into his annuity plan for his retirement. And he's straight up about that. And that's great. That's honest. And I said, well, then you got to go find where the money is. And the money's with CAL FIRE. And so he has been talking to, like my mentor in LA County was Jay Lopez. Jay is in the Office of Emergency Management in Sacramento now. He's been talking to Jay. He's been talking to CAL FIRE. He's, by being a Firewise community, he's gotten linked into CAL FIRE. So maybe down the road, there actually will be some resources for us, which would be just incredible to be able to bring this to all of our community, all of our Firewise communities, because there's no doubt this process of keeping databases and all of that stuff. Peter software is backed by the back end is a true customer management piece of software, like Salesforce would be a big name one. So, but that's down the road. And in the meantime, we got to do our jobs. So, there's that's where that's all going. But going on his website is a great place to sort of learn about ideas and stuff like that. And he's working with the city of Calabasas, yet again, a place where he could get some money to do, Firewise communities across the city of Calabasas.
I see.
And that helps and makes sense. So I hope that helps answer some of your questions.
That's a great update. Thank you.
Yeah. The inside scoop there. Thank you, Beth. And then James, I think you have go ahead.
Yeah. Along those lines, who does the hosting? See, to me, that was the core question. You can create a website, but you have to pay somebody to host it. Is that all set up, or do we do that?
So like the Ondulando and the Fire Safe Council in Topanga, we all use Google.
Yeah, Google.
It's free.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
On the Google Sites.
Yeah, the Google Sites is a great tool, and there's no reason to have to pay anybody. You can use Google Sites. It's good enough.
I think sometimes there's like a payment for the web domain, depending on what domain you use.
Got to pay for the domain name, yeah, and that's like $15 a year. Come on, you can do it.
Oh, Daddy.
Wow.
Speaking of free Google stuff, we're getting down in the weeds here, though. But Max did a great workshop you can find the recording of how to use my Google Maps. So if you're
Yeah.
trying to I'm trying to nail all these different neighborhoods in San Jose Valley exactly to the parcels. And when you zoom in, you can actually see little outlines of the structures. And so that's one way to sort of, maybe determine, oh, there's a couple of dwelling units here, because you're supposed to come up with an exact count of your dwelling units. And so some of this stuff is really detailed, but I guess NFPA and CAL FIRE, they just want people to get started. You don't have to be a perfectionist with it, right, Natasha?
Yeah, exactly. Just get started and submit the application. They'll give you some recommendations on it. But I think you're doing a great job, Kevin.
Yeah, a map I just found today because I was wandering around the Franklin Fire information is maps.wildfire.gov. And I was looking at the Franklin Fire, but then I went up to Mono County, and well, first of all, it's got a nice logo on it, which is which is a good thing. But it also allows you to really get in, and you can see, it gives you street names, and you can see structures. You can't see property lines with it, but it will help you get a count. I've used often Google Maps and literally just come in really, really close and gotten addresses, and then just been able to build how many dwelling units are there based upon the number of addresses.
Yeah.
CAL FIRE really wants you to map your community in such a way that it's a polygon. Your outline is contiguous. It can be weird shape, but it's continuously shaped, that there's nothing excluded from the inside of it, and there's nobody outside of that polygon that's added in. So they want it to have just a shape around it. And you can enlarge your Firewise community annually, but if you do that, you're going to have to go through another community wildfire risk assessment. And so what I have said to my communities, where they might have lots that are under construction, I said, hey, if they're already framing the house, count it. It's going to cost you one more hour of community investment, but you're never going to have to count it again. And I would say that as long as you can get boundaries that you don't need to change, then, come 5 years when you redo your community wildfire risk assessment, if you need to change your boundaries, you can. And so I tend to go with the CAL FIRE prefers for you to make them bigger. And grow into those boundaries. You could start off working in a neighborhood and grow into those boundaries. That entire neighborhood carries the load for the rest of the community. But that's just a strategy issue.
Yeah, definitely it's a strategy I recommend sometimes too. If folks are thinking of expanding in the future, just include those neighborhoods now. Yeah. And then James, I just want to make sure that you have let's see, I think Gary shared his email. So if you want to get connected with Gary, I'm happy to share that with you afterwards. You can just grab the email now before we end it. But that will be I'll go ahead and give his email probably the next time we chat if you wanted to talk more about the gas. I think you guys were talking about some sort of gas situation over there. Let's see if I can find in the chat. But yeah, if you want to get connected with him, happy to connect you too. Any other questions for Nancy and Ben while they're here? Okay, Nancy, Ben, do you have any last statements that you want to say or any questions to the folks here?
I would say one thing, and it's weird. Our board has 7 of us, and we certainly couldn't do it by ourselves. But an interesting thing about our board is we have no officers. We're all just on the board. And it seems to work really well because we share everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the great things about Firewise is you're not a legal entity, so you don't need to have officers at all. Someone's got to be a resident leader, but really the only role of the resident leader is to give Firewise an email address. They're the ones who Firewise can communicate with. Otherwise, everyone can be perfectly equal. And you can have co-resident leaders, which we have also done. And Firewise is perfectly fine with that.
One of the communities that we work with, that they rotate their leadership year by year. So they have everybody on their board, and then they have it scheduled of when they're going to lead. So that one's an interesting
You
way to
can
do it
set
too.
up, you can make your official email address a Gmail address that you've set up for your Firewise community, and everybody on your board can have access to it.
Right.
And then Firewise is talking to that email address, and whoever is the resident leader is the one who has to respond back in that moment.
Yeah, great way to go about it too. I think Ondulando has that set up for them as well.
Yeah, I like that setup a lot more than people using their private email addresses.
Yeah.
We all know volunteers are gonna move, crash and burn, whatever. And then trying to gather all that information is it's really hard. And so if there's a community email address, it's a great way to go.
Yeah, definitely. I think if there's like a starting guide, a community email address is always a great one. All right, so I think we're almost 2:30, but I wanted to say thank you so much for everyone that came and attended for the last one for 2024. Nancy, Ben, thank you for presenting. It was really great to have you here. And then happy holidays, everyone. I hope you enjoy the holiday season and stay tuned for January, what January will look like in terms of workshops. Okay, I think we're gonna end it here.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.